Hello, welcome or welcome back to the YarnNYarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela and all the places you can find me should be linked in the description box below this video. Here on the channel you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting, spinning, crochet and weaving. Today's video is day 10 of our 12 cast ons adventure this round. Wow, we really are approaching the end now. I wonder what we'll get today. I've got at least 3 pairs of socks I think in the prompts that I've got on my cards. So I wonder if it will be Sunday of socks, or will we end up rolling a number that we've already rolled before? We haven't done that yet. We'll see what happens, I guess. Before I roll the dice, I will just chat to you quickly about what I'm wearing. Let me just stand up so you can sort of briefly see a little bit more of the sweater. It's the Radiate sweater by Joji Locatelli, and after the Dern sweater which I wore the other day, this is my most worn sweater for sure. It's a double knit pattern. It's absolutely fabulous, and it's not often that I feel like I would knit something twice. I'm definitely doing that with the Love Note. I would do it with the Dern, and I would do it with this as well. I really have a fancy to spin some yarn for the contrast colour for another version of this, so perhaps that might be something for next year's round of 12 cast ons. We'll see. Right, before we think about next year, let's crack on with this year and get the dice rolled for today. Okay, a visit from Extremely Scruffy, just woken up editing Ange, who is trying to get the beginning of this video sorted out. And you know what I'm going to say? I didn't record the dice roll. That is a pretty big disaster, isn't it? But please believe me when I say I'm not cheating on this at all. I am just going with whatever the dice rolled for me. And yesterday it was number 17. What a huge fail. Wah, wah, wah. Oh dear. Okay, the dice have spoken and we got number 17, which we had 16 yesterday, so that's quite funny. I believe that this is going to be a prompt that might make me think a little bit about what I might want to do cast on. I think I mentioned in one of the earlier videos, a lot of the lower numbered prompts I think were specific projects, and a lot of the higher number prompts were something like a bit more general, a bit more vague, so I had a little bit of choice or say in what's going on. So let's see what we've got for number 17, Gingerbread Man. Now I want a gingerbread man, I want a biscuit. Oh, okay, handspun. Wow, okay, the dice have really been trying to encourage me to work with my handspun this year, haven't they? I think we've already started a spin project and we've cast on with a couple of handspun quantities. So yeah, the idea behind this prompt was just for me to raid my handspun yarn stash and pick out something to start. So I need to figure out first what handspun I'm going to use, and also what pattern I'm going to cast on. I haven't really got anything in mind for this, so yeah, let's put this virus-addled brain to work. See what I can come up with. Oh my goodness, that was such a conundrum. I didn't know what to pick. Why did I do that to myself back when I started these prompt cards? But I think I have decided on a project now. I guess, you know, I've got quite a big handspun stash and I've got quite a big pattern stash, but trying to marry the two together sometimes when you're trying to use your handspun that you've already made, it can take some time. But I think I've got it. So I have got this lovely yarn. I've got lots of it in this bag, and it is some fibre, some Blue Face Leicester that I spun up from the Nellie and Eve Fibre Club. And I belonged to this fibre club for about a year. I've still got plenty of fibre to spin up. In the end, I stopped the fibre club, not because the fibre isn't beautiful, but just because I wasn't keeping up with the spinning. I think this might have been one of the first colours that came through, and so I did spin through it. And it's a very gentle sort of brown colour with pops of pinks through it. And Helen, the dyer, said that she took inspiration from hyacinth bulbs. And I spun mine up as a singles yarn on my spindles, and my original intention was to maybe weave a scarf with this, but I just haven't got round to doing that, and it's been sat there in my stash. It's gently thick and thin as a singles yarn is when I spin it. It's probably over twisted in places. This is one of my first attempts at doing a proper singles, but hopefully this will work out for the project that I have in mind. So I was flicking through my pattern books and I've got this issue of Making, which is the forest issue. And in here is a beautiful lightly textured shawl called the Dappled Light shawl. Sorry, I'm having problems with words. This congestion has moved into my throat and I can't speak properly today. Let me show you the pattern. Hopefully the camera focused in on that. And the original pattern is actually made from a hand spun yarn, but I think it's a commercially available hand spun yarn. It is Kashgora Sport by Kashmir People. It's a sport weight yarn, and it says here 1 skein is used of the yarn. However, due to the hand spun nature, you might need a 2nd skein, which is obviously making me think it's a smaller produced yarn. I've never heard of it before. But the pattern recommends you need up to 320 metres, and I've got 400 odd metres in my bag, so I should have plenty. And it seems like a pattern that can be easily adjustable. There's a certain pattern repeat and you're kind of increasing all the time. So yeah, that's the plan. I have no idea, because it's been so long since I've spun this yarn, whether there's going to be really thin bits in there, but hopefully it's fairly consistent. And I've got all of these skeins ready to wind up and get casting on. So yeah, let's go for it. Let's see what we can do today. As it's Sunday, it should be a really gentle day today. James has actually picked up the lurgy as well, so he's not feeling great. I'm still not feeling the best, but I think we're just going to have a cosy day indoors. So this vlog might be a fairly short one. There'll be no out and about footage today, but hopefully you don't mind that. We've had quite long vlogs every day so far, so yeah, we'll see. I could end up taking a lot of footage throughout the day. Who knows where inspiration will strike. It says I need 3.75mm needles, so let's go on the search for those.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me. I don't mind when it's just us two. That corner coffee shop we like to go. Late night walks with you to take me home. With you I never feel alone.
These little songs make me glad to call you mine. And you have got my head in the clouds.
1, 2, 3.
All that I need is your body next to me on rainy days. Just need your company, don't need too much. Just your simple love and it's everything. The simple joy of hearing your voice every morning. I wake to a kiss on my face, so I don't need too much. Just your simple love and it's everything. Walking to the market, strolling hand in hand, exchanging letters.
I've just finished my first pattern repeat of the shawl. I love the subtle colour shifty bits of the yarn showing up, I think, a little bit more on camera than in real life. My fabric is quite loose though. I think my yarn is more like a fingering weight rather than a sport weight as recommended in the pattern, and the texture bits are really open. I'm not sure how well that will show up. What I'm thinking about doing, because the pattern recommends a 3.75mm needle, I'm also generally a looser than average knitter. So I'm thinking for my yarn, I might try and do the next pattern repeat in a 3.5mm needle, see if that gives me a fabric that I'm slightly happier with. There's nothing really wrong with this fabric, it's just maybe slightly loose. Obviously it's going to be a shawl, you want a nice bit of drapey texture, but I just feel like there are some really thin bits in my yarn. My singles aren't massively consistent, although they're more consistent than I'd hoped they might be, which is good. So yeah, rather than rip back and start again, I mean this isn't much knitting, but rather than do that, I think I'm just going to switch my needles and see what the gauge is like on one size down, if I'm happier with that. If I'm not, I'll just switch back for the pattern repeat after that. And you know, a little bit of fiddling around at the beginning of the shawl is not going to make much difference to the finished piece, I don't think. I think this is going to be a really sort of gentle knit, because basically I'm repeating this pattern all the way through until the shawl is as big as I want it to be. So yeah, I think it's going to be a lovely knitting experience, and so hopefully I'll get another couple of pattern repeats done before the day is out. I don't know if you can see just behind me, there is a sleeping kitty. She has, as per usual, commandeered all of the blankets. Oh dear, someone's living their best life.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right.
Oh, I don't know about you, but my weekend went really quickly. It's now Monday morning, so of course time to check in and share with you the progress that I made on my cast on yesterday, but also to share the wonderful things that are happening within our Yarn and Yarns community, all of the cast ons. I honestly thought that we would have slowed down by now. I'm getting distracted. I think my glasses need a clean, or is it just a shadow from the sun pouring in? I don't know. Where was I? Yes, I thought I was going to be sharing less cast-ons as the days went by, but I've got such a huge list of cast-ons to share with you today. I'm just completely blown away by all of your participation this year. Eleanor has cast on a cushion using some beautiful Wensleydale yarn, which was that a hand-spun yarn, Eleanor? I saw your photo on Instagram. She's also cast on a pova hat, a peppermint throw, which is interlocking crochet, which I tried that once before, and it's a really fun technique, but a little bit mind-bending when you first start it. She's also started some mitts, a self-striping yarn that she dyed herself, a scarf, a foxtrot scarf, and an Easter jumper, and her Easter jumper is just so much fun. Over on Ellie's Instagram post, and she did give me permission to share what she'd been posting over there. She said that she had been given someone else's stash of yarn, and in that stash were some eyelash yarn. And I don't know if you remember eyelash yarn, it was quite a craze a few years ago. It's very sort of fluffy, like over the top yarn, and she's decided to make herself an Easter sweater incorporating the eyelash yarn, which is just going to be so much fun. Absolutely bonkers. But I love it. Fee has cast on her number 3 project. She said it was another unplanned cast on, but a new pattern popped up and she had the perfect yarn in her stash. So she's casting on a Vimba dress using some Mancholope combined with some handspun. And Mancholope is another brand a bit like Pluto Lope or the Newton yarns of the unspun yarn. Tracy has cast on a number 18 by My Favourite Things. Susan has finished her Aslaug mitts, which is a pattern by Skein-Deer, and she's cast on her number 6 project, which is a cushion cover using some handspun yarn, which is just amazing. I love the handspun projects that are popping up. Pamela has started a pair of snowflake cuff socks, and Pamela's been doing this really fun thing where she casts on something new but also works on a work in progress, and she said this week's work in progress is going to be a beret for her sister, but her sister's chosen black yarn, which is not everyone's favourite to knit in, is it? Celeste has decided to cast on the Advent mitts that I cast on. She said she decided on a whim to cast on with me, and the fun thing is that Celeste said the designer of that pattern lives really close to her and she pretty much goes past her house every day. So if you ever bump into her, Celeste, please tell her that we love her pattern. Winnie said that she's not cast on anything, but has been really trying to plan towards an intentional crafting year, which I absolutely love. Ellie has joined in with 3 pairs of socks and an oxbow cardigan and is hoping for at least one more cast on. Nina has cast on some socks and a Hansel hat and is hoping for a sweater. She said up until now she's been concentrating on a work in progress, which is the anthology throw. I've seen loads of anthology throws this season, which I think was the sort of adventy pattern released by Helen of Curious Handmade. And the fun thing for me is Nina said that she was using her mini skeins that she got from her YarnNYarns advent to work up that throw, so I hope you enjoyed knitting that pattern. Lisa is joining in the 12 cast ons for the first time, so welcome aboard, Lisa, we're happy to have you. And she's cast on a sweater, which is a Barocco pattern, and it's just called Raglan, and she's casting that on for her husband. She's also started a Nordic stripes crochet blanket, which sounds amazing, and she's aiming for 4 cast ons altogether. Angela has cast on some self-striping socks in some beautiful spring colours, which just sounds perfect. We have a beautiful sunny day here today, and I'm excited to get out and maybe do today's cast on, which will be day 11 outside. We'll see, fingers crossed. We'll see what the dice decides to choose for us. If it's a small project, I'll be casting on outside. If it's not, I won't, but I'll still be getting outside. Jenny has cast on 2 pairs of socks, and she said one is from Unique Yarn, which she purchased at YarnNYarns, so thank you for the support, Jenny. She's also started a granny square. I tried to say granny stripe, but it's a granny square blanket. And Jenny said she's also been working on a lot of her works in progress, including some cabled socks, which are taking up a lot of her brain power at the moment. I completely understand that. The lovely Vivian has started a podcast. She started up podcasting again. I shouldn't say she started a podcast because she used to podcast. She has resurrected her podcasting and has put up her first video, which is all about her 12 cast ons. So if you want some more cast on content, I shall link Viv's channel below. Lou has joined in with 4 cast ons, and I know Lou's knitting mojo has been missing in action, so I'm so glad that you have felt inspired to pick up the needles again, Lou. And Lou's cast on a barley hat and some barley mitts, a speltass wrap and a harvest cardigan. Sylvia has started her cast on number 4, and she said after not knitting for a while she's put a knitted wrap onto the needles and she can't put it down. Which is just amazing. Laurie has started some socks, a star blanket, an anthology throw and an after the rain sweater, so there's some amazing projects there, Laurie, can't wait to see those. Jenny has started a Love in the Mist shawl and some counterbalance mitts. Angela has started a Stitch on Sunday blanket and has the rest of her 12 cast ons planned. Jane said she was really trying hard to resist casting on, but she bought some new yarn and has started a cardigan, despite the fact she's got a cardigan on the needles, which she started last summer. Hey, you know me, I'm not going to even confess on here right now how old my oldest sweater garment whip is, so last summer is nothing, Jane, is nothing, and we're happy to have you on board for the cast on party. Erin said that she found her project bag with the socks in. I don't know if you remember a few days ago she had misplaced her socks, but they have now turned up again. She's also finished the dishcloths that she'd started and has started a new dishcloth pattern. She's starting the Year of Dishcloths, which apparently is a free sort of make along by Garlene of the Kitchen Sink Shop, and every month you get a free pattern for a dishcloth, and this year the patterns are inspired by baking, so apparently you get a free pattern and a free recipe, a baking recipe each month, which sounds amazing. I think I'm going to have to go and check that out. Alison has started a ribbed hat from Pearl Soho, and again Alison said that she wasn't going to join in, but she hasn't been able to resist the temptation, and she's also started to spin a precious gradient bat which was dyed by Countess Ablaze. And I recently heard that Countess Ablaze has stopped dyeing, which is quite sad. I've got a few skeins and I've got 1 braid of fibre in my stash from Countess Ablaze, so yes, that is a precious stash indeed. The lovely Caroline of Colourful Creativity said she's cheating slightly because her latest cast on is actually a blanket square and it's going to be part of a blanket that she's already cast on, but I'm totally happy for that if you're working on a modular project, because I think something like a dishcloth definitely counts for our make along. So if you've got a blanket square that's as big as or bigger than a dishcloth, then that totally counts. I think, you know, maybe if you're just doing like teeny tiny 2 round granny squares, that maybe is a little bit cheating. But anything that's dishcloth shape or bigger that you're going to add into an ongoing work in progress, that's sort of like a project on its own, totally counts if you ask me. And you are asking me because it's my make along. Maybe you're not asking, I'm just telling. Hey, whatever. It counts. I think that's it for the cast ons, but I did just want to give a lovely shout out to Ginny, who said that with the help of her carer, she has been going through all of her works in progress and has tidied up her project bags, and now has a really good idea in her head of what's in what bag. Any old projects or any bits and pieces have been tidied up, cleared away, put back into stash, and she now has a lovely organised array of project bags with projects ready to pick up and work on, which is just fabulous. That is something I am going to need to do once I have finished the last of these cast-ons, because yeah, if you could see the complete chaos that's surrounding me at the moment, you would be ashamed of me. There is stuff everywhere, particularly I think this year, because I have done quite a few decide it on the day projects, as in random pattern pick or choose some yarn from my handspun stash. You know, I've kind of emptied out bins, buckets, project bags, and yeah, it's very chaotic in here. As always, a very heartfelt thank you to everyone who continues to participate, either by working on their projects that they've already cast on or by continuing to cast on new things. It's just made this make along such a fun thing for me in the last couple of years, and yeah, thank you just so much for your enthusiasm and participation. Okay, so finally, before we wrap up this video, it's time for me to share my progress on the Dappled Light shawl, and I promised myself I would do 3 pattern repeats on this, because as much as I could sit and knit all day, I need to look after my hands. I can knit for quite a long time, but also, you know, I've got a year's worth of making ahead of me, so I don't want to burn myself out or injure myself in the pursuit of getting a lot of progress on each day's project. However, I was so enamoured with how this yarn was knitting up and the beautiful gentleness of this project that I did end up doing 4 pattern repeats. And here is my progress. I think it's really, really difficult to share with you on camera the lovely sort of subtle colour pops in this yarn, which was so beautifully dyed. The fibre was so beautifully dyed by Nellie and Eve, Helen of Nellie and Eve. I love how the colours are subtly sort of shifting and striping across the shawl, and I'm really excited to see where it goes next. I feel like I'm going to have a ton of yarn left over. Obviously my rows are going to get bigger and bigger now, but I've hardly used any of the first skein that I wound up. And originally I wound up 2 skeins, and I was thinking about alternating a bit like I would with an indie dyed yarn, but then I figured I would just go for it and do 1 skein at a time, because it would just be easier, and because I knew there would be some colour shifting and striping in the handspun yarn anyway. Yeah, I just figured I'd let it do its thing and we'd see where it goes. There are some really thin bits every now and then, not too often, in my yarn. For the most part, I'm fairly happy with how consistent it is, given that it's a singles yarn. But yeah, there's been a couple of really thin spots, but hopefully on a shawl that's, although obviously I'm intending to wear it, it's not going to probably get as much wear as my sweaters, for instance. So yeah, I'm hoping that those thinner spots will hold up to a bit of wear and tear, and the yarn seems pretty strong overall. You know, it's not, I have to give it a really, really good tug if I want to sort of break it. So my singles are fairly strong, given that they are singles. Yeah, I'm liking the gentle sort of texture in the pattern. My texture is a little bit more pronounced than the picture on the pattern pages, and when I looked, there's not too many projects using this shawl on Ravelry, but when I looked, most other people's looked like mine. And there's rows where you do sort of double wrap stitches, and then you only knit into one of the wraps on the way back. And On the pattern pictures, I think those stitches have been wrapped really tightly by whoever knit the original shawl, but for most other people they're coming out a little bit more open like mine. More than happy with how this is knitting up, and yeah, just another one that obviously I knit more than I was intending to. I couldn't stop. And I think this is going to be a really nice neutral that will go with everything. Not that I tend to pair my accessories with what I'm wearing, I just wear whatever. All of the colours, all of the time. But yeah, I mean, this lovely grey brown with these tiny sort of shades of a beautiful kind of pinky colour will literally go with anything, won't it? Yeah, another successful start for me. It's been kind of fun on the days where I've had to kind of think and choose on the fly, because I've cast on some things that probably wouldn't have got cast on otherwise, using some lovely yarns. So yeah, I might not have got to do all of the projects, all of those sort of specific projects that I really wanted to cast on by the end of this process, but I have a lot of lovely things on the needles that I'm really excited to continue. Only a couple more days of casting on left, so it won't be long now until I get to pick some things to pick back up again. Please do continue to let me know in the comments below what you're working on, what you're casting on, and I hope you will join me for tomorrow's video, day 11. Only a couple more days left of our cast on adventure this year, but until we do get to spend time together again, I hope you get to do some of the things that you enjoy. Great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now. Bye.